Hey friends, my name is Dean and I am an investor, entrepreneur, and trader, business builder, any number of titles you want to slap onto it. I was inspired by a friend recently to start documenting my journey, mainly because I think as time goes on, our realizations about various topics will wane, and so I wanted to make sure that I capture them while they're still fresh and while I'm still growing through this journey, so that my future children and their grandchildren and etc. can potentially come back, reference these videos, and say, you know what, Grandpa left some nuggets of wisdom from his lifetime, and hopefully they're helpful to you as the audience as well. The key topic I wanted to talk about today is the topic of long-term thinking versus short-term thinking. I was on the call today with one of my very, very good friends who is one of the most successful business people that I've had the pleasure of building a good relationship with. And it was a very casual conversation. And at one point I asked him a genuine question, which was, what do you think is the most important key tenets you would say are the drivers of your success? And also, what do you think are the most important principles in business to keep in mind? And he thought about it for a couple seconds and he said there's 2 points. One is you want to build really long-term, trustworthy relationships with people that are of high value. Number 2 is you never want to violate those relationships and that earned trust. I think in today's get-rich-quick social media world, it's very easy to get caught up with this idea that you should make money fast and you should make it really overnight. You should make an abundance of it. And I think that's the wrong way to think about it, because overall life is pretty long. And although money is one of the easiest metrics to keep track of, I think after you grow beyond a certain level, it's actually one of the least important resources. I would argue that as one gets older, the quality of one's relationships and adherence to one's own values is actually much more important in terms of one's inner peace and happiness than the actual dollar amount that one accrues. And this is a realization that I've come to largely through the difficult path. It's not something that I naturally learned because I'm smarter than anybody else. It's actually something that I realized because we're going through one of the most difficult bear markets we've seen in recent times. We've done extraordinarily well as Stealth Capital, but in the process, I've seen many of my very good friends, many of whom were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, get completely wiped out or lose large portions of their fortunes. And it's really reinforced a couple of things. I think, first of all, money comes and goes. There's an element of fate and luck that is outside of a lot of our hands when it comes to entrepreneurship and business. And what doesn't come and go is our own relationship with ourselves and our relationships with the people that matter and the people that care about us. And focusing on those qualities, I think, through thick and thin, through good times and bad times, is of the utmost importance if one wants to build a sustainable, long-term relationship in business and in any endeavor that one wants to embark upon. The key piece is that in good times and bad, we can always count on ourselves first and foremost, and then obviously the relationships and networks that we've built. And those relationships and networks that we build has to be built upon an earned level of trust. I actually had a tweet about this a couple of days ago, but I think earned trust in today's high-speed, high-velocity deal-making world is very underrated. And although it may not yield immediate fast money in the short term, it's something that will compound like capital over time, and it will lead to not only a lot of financial benefits as you become more successful and your network becomes more successful, but also it brings a lot more meaning and love and elements that are not tangible and cannot be purchased financially. I just spent Thanksgiving with my family back at home, and we went and visited a family that we've known for many, many years. I've known them since I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and we grew up with their children, and now some of them have had children of their own. And so it was very, very beautiful and wonderful to feel that atmosphere of love and care. And it's not necessarily that money is not important, because money, of course, is extremely important to pay for one's bills and things like that. But at the end of the day, money cannot buy unconditional love from family and friends and loved ones. And I would actually argue with unconditional love, no matter what type of setback one may encounter in life, you have this base level of confidence and certainty that you can always come back from it. Whereas without it, no matter how much money you have, most relationships you have with people are largely transactional and short term. And it's very, very hard and lonely to live that way. Whereas For me, I would much rather give up short-term financial gains if it means that I'm building lasting relationships with people that share values that I treasure, that are good people that will be similarly forces for good in the world, like I would like to be. Now, to go back to Thanksgiving dinner, I was watching kind of the 4 generations of family members interacting, and the level of love and the level of family was so warm and so wonderful that it made me really start to question whether or not, as a young man, I had valued a lot of the correct things. And I think now, being in my late 20s, it's perhaps the natural stage where young men start realizing. I think as a young male, it's very easy to be seduced by the idea of making lots of money, have lots of beautiful women or men, whichever preference is yours, and having nice things, whether it's a car, apartment, etc. But as one becomes more in tune with one's mortality, I think, at least from my experience, you realize that old age, mortality, sickness, etc., it's inevitable. The day we were born, we were destined to die. And you can, party as much as you want. You can go hook up with as many attractive people as you want. You can make as much money as you want. But at the end of the day, you can't change the fact that you're mortal. And although all those distractions are nice, I think over time one realizes that the things that bring us the most joy and the most meaning in this finite time that we have, that we can't really reverse, is time with family. This Thanksgiving, I actually had a number of business obligations that were weighing heavy on me. And I had initially decided, I can't carve out time to go visit my parents who live in a different region. And then I kind of ran through this mental framework. And it's largely based off this wonderful movie that Adam Sandler starred in called Click, which, in case you haven't watched, I had to highly recommend watching it. I fast forwarded myself, 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old, right? And if somebody came to me and gave me the opportunity and said, hey, Dean, if you pay $1,000, you'll have the opportunity to spend Thanksgiving week or weekend with your parents again, I think I would be willing to pay 100 times that amount, maybe even 1,000 times that amount at that point, right? $100,000, $1 million. It doesn't really matter, because at that point, what is money to me, right? If my parents are no longer there, if I'm able to experience those beautiful moments with them while they're still here and share that love and to make sure that they're taken care of, it's priceless. Especially if I already have the knowledge and the confidence that I will build a financial fortune over time. It might not happen overnight, but it's something that I think over time, if you're building the right skills, the right relationships, the right infrastructure, it's inevitable and will compound. This relationship between long-term thinking and short-term thinking, I think, also applies to many aspects of life beyond just business, right? For example, as a younger person, I would tend to have an approach towards, for example, something like working out as a goal-oriented process, where I was always targeting, hey, if I can bench this amount, or I could deadlift this amount, or maybe I can have this weight, or I can look like this, I'll be happy, right? And I think that that's the way that a lot of Western culture and a lot of young individuals view life in general. And what I've come to realize is that even if you achieve that goal, even if you get to that point, life is never a snapshot, right? Life is always flowing, in the sense that once you get there, you're either going to be happy for a moment, or you're going to then feel empty and then be like, hey, how do I set up a different goal, and start chasing after that, right? Naval Ravikant wrote a really wonderful phrase, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something like, setting a goal or having a desire is agreeing to not be happy until that point is satisfied, right? And I think it's a very foolish way to live, because life is always happening. It is not an end point, and is never a snapshot. If you have an ultimate goal-oriented view towards life, the ultimate goal for all of us is death, right? We're all going to get old. We're all going to die, or at least that's the direction that we were programmed to progress towards. And so having a much more healthy approach and sustainable approach towards all aspects of life is something that I would highly encourage others to do. And it's brought me tremendous peace and happiness. So right now I have a daily workout routine that I embark upon, but it's not something that I force myself to do. It's not some type of goal that I must hit. It's more of like, I enjoy doing these things. I enjoy pushing myself. I enjoy the gifts that God has given me while I'm still healthy and young. But I also enjoy these gifts with the understanding that they will at some point atrophy. They will at some point be taken away from me. And so there's no need attaching any modicum of pride or ego towards these gifts, because these gifts are ephemeral, similar to money, similar to status, similar to any external gifts that may be bestowed upon one's life, because those things come and go. And until one has lived their final day on this planet, it's very hard to say whether ultimately a gift was a good thing or perhaps a bad thing, depending on which time scale you're looking at. Through all the external fluctuations, ups, the downs, the sideways, I think there are elements of your personal character, your personal integrity, your relationships with other people, how you choose to interact with other people, that you can always control whether or not the economy is good, whether or not there's warfare, whether or not, your customers are subscribing or signing up or whatever your business may entail. Your relationship with you over the long term is one of the most important aspects to grasp. So in summary, I think it would be really important and prudent for young folks to really get in touch with the nature of reality and the nature of mortality, because understanding that one is inevitably going to grow old, is inevitably going to die and no longer have kind of these gifts that we were bestowed with as young people, is a very humbling experience first and foremost, but also it brings a certain level of peace and clarity. And so when you achieve things that are short-term successes in business or short-term failures, you don't take them personally, and you also can objectively see them for what they are, which are external aspects of life that will come, will go, and in good times, hopefully you can use those assets and benefits to help create better circumstances in the world. But in bad times, to also understand that those external aspects of life do not define who you are. And if you are a competent, high-value person that you've built through effort and through time, and you have relationships that are of high value and trustworthy and tested through time and tribulation, you can always build your way back. Whereas if you trade your relationship with yourself, if you trade your integrity, if you trade your trust and earned trust with your family and your friends in exchange for money short term, it's a really, really bad trade. And if money were to go from whatever reason, whether the economy is down, you get hacked, you make a bad investment, it's going to be really, really hard to rebuild that trust, not only with yourself, but with others. And as one gets older, those relationships are ultimately what brings a lot of joy and value to one's life. And it's something that I caution young people to realize, hopefully at an earlier age than I realized, and something that will also help bring a certain level of peace and zen, for lack of a better word, as one continues to progress and push and explore what their personal potential is, but also understand that at the end of the day, none of those external things are things that will be permanent, and it's something that should be enjoyed in the process and with people that you genuinely care for and care about you.